Oh, hello, colleagues. Today we are talking changes in new version of PCI DSS. This is important. Cards, numbers, safety.
Are you okay, Mark? Are you okay?
The world is changing, and so we must secure our standards. Today we look at what is different now in PCI DSS.
Oh, hold on. I think I know what's going on. Mark, did you get an AI to write that script?
Yes, I got an AI to write my script. But why not? Look, version 4 was published 18 months ago. There really isn't anything new to explain.
Whoa. Yes, there are a lot of new things since the standard came out in March 2022. The Council has been very active developing a lot of supporting materials, guidance, and clarifications to help support organizations as they transition to version 4. And all of what we've been publishing has been in response to what we've been hearing from the community.
So we have new information that these people need to know. We should do a top 10 list.
No. It's 2023, Mark. Top 10 lists are so last year. But don't worry, because I've come up with something really good that everybody's going to love. AI images. Oh, no. It's not like that awful script. I found a really cool AI that only makes images using cute animals. It's amazing. You are definitely going to love it. You're going to love it.
Okay, let's see the first slide.
I mean, okay, that's pretty cute. And look, it's our FAQs, so it's a fox reading a FAQ.
See? Told you.
Okay. Well, this actually is a perfect segue to the first update I wanted to provide, which is FAQs. So the Council has been hard at work kind of analyzing and updating a lot of our current FAQs to align with PCI DSS version 4 terminology and a lot of the new concepts. But we're also updating and adding new FAQs directly in response to a lot of the feedback we've been receiving from organizations. We've actually added 25 either new or updated FAQs directly to the FAQ page of our website. So for instance, we're getting a lot of questions about what a duly authorized officer is, especially in relation to the new signature field in the AOC for lead QSA. So we've expanded that FAQ and really looked at the difference between a duly authorized officer and a lead assessor, because in some instances, they may be different. We've also significantly updated the FAQ on payment terminals, because a lot of assessors have been asking, well, when I do a PCI DSS version 4 assessment, what are some best practices I can use when updating or looking at payment terminals? We've added actually a completely brand new FAQ on sampling, because I don't know if you've noticed, but we removed the term sampling from the testing procedures. So yes, sampling remains an option for version 4.0 assessments. But we've also been getting a lot of questions about dates and generally transitioning to version 4, and those FAQs will be touched on in the upcoming presentations.
You know, in class, students frequently ask me if an assessor can rely on results from a different type of assessment, like maybe a SOC 2 audit to determine if an organization is PCI DSS compliant. And then sometimes an assessor might ask if another employee in their organization can gather evidence for them. So I'm glad now we've got some FAQs with the answers.
Well, don't leave us hanging. Can an assessor rely on other types of assessment? And can they get someone else to collect evidence on their behalf?
Oh, well, the short answer is no and yes. But honestly, you have to actually read the FAQs in order to understand them and how they apply and any caveats that go along with them. You know, Tom, I bet you're pretty excited because now we have a new FAQ about triple DES or TDEA.
Oh yeah, I love that one. Ever since some standards bodies deprecated TDEA, we get lots of questions about whether it still qualifies as strong cryptography for PCI DSS.
And is triple DES strong cryptography?
I mean, it can be, but it depends how it's used. The FAQ says, and I quote, TDEA using 3 keys can still provide effective strength of 112 bits when applied using appropriate key management and modes of operation.
Have you memorized all of our FAQs?
Oh, barely, but I have bookmarked the All FAQs page, which lists out every FAQ in order of publication. It's brilliant.
So if we updated the FAQs, did we make any changes to the SAQs?
Mark, did you read the SAQs?
Yeah. Yeah, I've read all the SAQs. I mean, wait, hold on. I've got my copy right here.
Is that a compact disc? I don't think I've even got a machine that can read a CD anymore. When did you burn that?
2015.
Whoa, Mark, we have brand new documents. We even have a new SAQ for Spock solutions. So organizations using software-based pin entry solutions could perform their own self-assessments. And also, existing SAQs, have been updated for version 4. Some of them have requirements they didn't have before. So please don't rely on those old versions. Certainly, download the latest copy from our website.
If you open up an SAQ, you will notice that the questions have been replaced with the actual PCI DSS requirements. And some of the responses have changed as well. All of this stuff together means you've got to go and look at the new versions. If you want to know more about the SAQs, I would recommend reading the SAQ instructions and guidelines document. No, not an old one that you downloaded and burned onto a disk years ago, but the new one, because it answers a lot of questions about all of the SAQs.
And actually, tomorrow afternoon, John and I will be looking more closely at SAQs in our talk, What's New for PCI DSS version 4 SAQs.
Oh, it's this guy. I love him. He's teaching all about risk, which is good because I really need to know more about TRAs.
Yeah, the targeted risk analyses. Did you know there's actually 2 different types of these?
What, 2 kinds of TRA?
Right. It depends on the approach. So one kind is for defined approach requirements that specifically call for a TRA to determine the frequency that a security control is used. And then the other type is part of the customized approach.
And that's led to a lot of questions like, what types of information and what steps are included in a TRA, and when do I perform each one? Well, I think it really helps if we look at why each TRA was added to the standard in the first place. So there is a TRA requirement to define the frequency of POI device inspections. And why would you do that? Well, when an organization that has a POI device in a locked room that is always under surveillance and attended, would they have to inspect their POI devices at the same frequency as an organization with a POI device left unattended with no surveillance? I don't think so. So the targeted risk analysis to determine that frequency allows organizations to pull all of these different environmental factors into the requirement and really help solidify those controls so that they can really satisfy their organization's risk appetite.
The second type of TRA is part of the customized approach. And that's because when you use the customized approach, an entity is going to create a new type of security control, and that calls for a formal risk assessment. Now, this TRA is described in the sample targeted risk analysis template, and it provides a systematic, repeatable method to analyze how that control deals with the risk.
Yeah, and because of the level of interest on this very topic, the Council is working on additional guidance for targeted risk analyses. We're actually going to develop a new sample template for the TRA to determine the frequency of an activity, and that'll be available on our website shortly. But this guidance is also going to look at a variety of questions like, do I have to do a targeted risk analysis if I want to perform an activity more frequently than the requirement states? Well, the answer is no. A targeted risk analysis is only required in a requirement that explicitly calls for it. Another question that this guidance will address is, what happens if I perform a targeted risk analysis and my assessor doesn't agree?
I think I can answer that one, because it isn't really any different from the evidence other evidence you'd use in an assessment. It's the assessor's role to evaluate the evidence and determine if a requirement's in place. So, if an assessor is looking at a TRA and they determine, in their professional opinion, that it does not meet the requirement, then that requirement will be marked as not in place in the report on compliance. Now, all TRAs are going to be new. So if it were me, if I were the entity being assessed, I would work with my assessor, give them the TRA documentation, and get their opinion on it long before the assessment begins.
I think it's also worth noting that the Council actually removed a requirement about risk assessment. A general organization-wide risk assessment is no longer needed. Are those gophers?
I think they're prairie dogs, and they're coming up with a complex password.
Well, they shouldn't be sharing a password.
Oh, no, it's okay. They don't have access to any CDEs. But they are interested in password requirements. Perhaps that's because ours have changed, and we've got lots of questions about why the password requirements changed the way they did, and whether we're going to align them with any other industry standards.
Yeah, so many standards bodies have a variety of rules governing passwords and authentication more broadly. And the Council certainly looked at a lot of this guidance, as well as pulled from top industry resources when developing our requirements. But the touchstone that we use when developing PCI DSS is what is needed to protect the entire payments ecosystem. Our requirements address the unique threats and the challenges specific to the payment card industry, balancing security with the needs of our global stakeholder community full of merchants and service providers. But PCI DSS itself gives a lot of flexibility, particularly when meeting these authentication requirements. So organizations that will implement zero trust architecture or even passwordless solutions can certainly meet these authentication requirements using the customized approach.
That's right. So the defined approach lays out password specifics that are easy to follow. But if you wanted to do something different to prevent attacks against passwords, you could choose to follow the customized approach. And then you might do something like add a CAPTCHA to your login page. Or maybe you use an algorithm like PBKDF2 with 20,000 rounds of SHA-256 to protect your passwords. And then finally, if you have a restriction, if you have some sort of business or technological constraint, you can still use a compensating control. There are just so many ways that you can meet these security requirements.
Well, that's excellent information. But what I want to know is, do I still have to change my password every 90 days?
No.
Oh, yes, you do. Yes.
Okay, well, all right. It depends, and that brings us to multi-factor authentication.
Is that a tiger inputting a password?
No, I think that laptop's got a poor scanner for biometric authentication, but it does do a one-time password as a second factor. That's quite common among feline predator authentication systems.
Oh, okay. But 90-day password changes. If you're using a password as part of single-factor authentication, they're still required. But if you're using a password as part of multi-factor authentication, then regular password changes aren't needed. So if an organization chose to use only MFA to connect to all of their in-scope systems, then password changes aren't needed. And and requirement 8.3.9 might just be not applicable.
And remember, it's important to note that people are going to be using MFA for many more connections because version 4 has expanded where these uses are required. So in the future, for example, MFA is going to be required for all access into the CDE and all remote access from outside of the organization's network if it could affect the security of the CDE.
So we've got quite a lot of MFA being used. So where would you have a single-factor account? Okay, if we need MFA to get into the CDE, then, okay. So if I've got an in-scope system that's outside the CDE, maybe an anti-malware server or a patch server, and I've got a user account, not an administrator account, but a user account that needs to connect to that, then that account could use a password, and that password would have to change every 90 days.
Right, because these changes could have a big effect on some of our environments. The standard has a lot of detail at the requirement level in both the guidance and the applicability notes. So it's important to look at all of that detail. As well, we have an information supplement and a variety of FAQs on MFA that we are actively updating right now. But because the community has been asking for a bit of clarification, we're going to add some additional information, answer some additional questions, and clarify some of those concepts that people have been wondering about.
All right. Well, Kandyce, you were right. It turns out there were new things to explain. New FAQs, updated FAQs, new SAQs, examples for TRAs, password guidance, MFA guidance.
And actually, all of this came out of the suggestions and responses from a lot of the payments community. So thank you to all of you that provided your feedback. I hope when you see this, you see that we're actually listening and we're trying to make these changes for you. But there's still more to come. And they can appear as FAQs to the FAQ page, guidance documents in our document library, or even as a new blog post. But everything can be found on PCIDSS.org. So, Tom, do you have one last slide to kind of wrap it all in for us today?
Well, I ran out of ideas, so what I did was I took all of the information, our notes about this presentation, and I fed them all into the AI, and this is what it came up with.
Oh.
Look, it's us. Marc, you're in the middle with a CD, and I've grown my hair back.
You know, but speaking of changes, I seem to remember with version 4, we introduced a new worksheet for documenting a security control. Like maybe a control that was in place, but it took a bit of remediation first.
Oh, yeah, that's ringing a bell. Something in place but with remediation. Items noted for improvement.
Yes, that is actually the INFI worksheet, of course. And so we have John and Matt coming to the stage right now to tell us all about INFI.